In the vast archipelago of Indonesia, where over 270 million people span thousands of islands from the bustling streets of Jakarta to the remote shores of Papua, a pivotal decision was announced on January 7, 2025, that reverberated through the corridors of global power. President Prabowo Subianto, in a measured address from the Merdeka Palace, confirmed Indonesia's formal accession to the BRICS alliance, becoming the first Southeast Asian nation to join this coalition of emerging economies. This was no isolated diplomatic maneuver. It marked the latest crest in a wave of de-dollarization, a deliberate effort by nations across the global south to reduce reliance on the United States dollar in international trade and finance. With Indonesia's addition, BRICS now encompassed 10 full members and 8 partner countries, representing over 45% of the world's population and 35% of global GDP. As the year unfolded, this expansion fueled initiatives like local currency settlements for oil and commodities, cross-border payment systems bypassing the dollar, and a growing chorus calling for a multipolar world order. Yet beneath the headlines, questions lingered. Was this wave truly unstoppable, or merely a swell destined to break against the entrenched might of the dollar? This is the story of BRICS's expansion to include Indonesia, a move that intertwined economic ambition with geopolitical strategy, accelerating a shift that could redefine how the world conducts its business. To grasp the significance of Indonesia's entry into BRICS, we must first unpack what BRICS is and how it evolved from a mere acronym into a formidable international bloc. BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the original 5 members. The term was coined in 2001 by economist Jim O'Neill at Goldman Sachs, who identified these nations as emerging economic powerhouses poised to dominate the 21st century. At the time, it was an analytical shorthand, highlighting countries with large populations, vast natural resources, and rapid growth rates. Brazil with its agricultural exports and Amazonian riches, Russia abundant in oil, gas, and minerals, India a demographic giant with a booming service sector, China the manufacturing behemoth, and South Africa a gateway to Africa's markets. Together, they represented a counterbalance to the Western-dominated institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, which were established after World War II under the Bretton Woods system. The Bretton Woods Agreement, signed in 1944 by representatives from 44 nations, created a framework for global finance centered on the United States dollar. Currencies were pegged to the dollar, which was itself backed by gold at a fixed rate of $35 per ounce. This system ensured stability in the post-war era, but it also entrenched American influence. When President Richard Nixon ended the dollar's gold convertibility in 1971, known as the Nixon shock, the world transitioned to fiat currencies, where money's value derives from government decree rather than physical backing. The dollar retained its supremacy through the petrodollar system, where oil-producing nations like Saudi Arabia priced their exports in dollars, creating perpetual demand. By the early 2000s, over 60% of global foreign exchange reserves were held in dollars, allowing the United States to borrow cheaply and wield sanctions as a foreign policy tool. BRICS formalized in 2009 with its first summit in Yekaterinburg, Russia, amid the global financial crisis triggered by the U.S. subprime mortgage collapse. Leaders like Russia's Vladimir Putin, China's Hu Jintao, India's Manmohan Singh, and Brazil's Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva saw an opportunity to amplify their voices. South Africa joined in 2010, adding an African dimension. Early goals were modest: enhancing trade among members, coordinating on global issues like climate change, and reforming international institutions to give developing nations more say. In 2014, they established the new Development Bank, headquartered in Shanghai, with an initial capital of $100 billion to fund infrastructure projects without the conditionalities imposed by Western lenders. The Contingent Reserve Arrangement, a $100 billion pool for financial crises, mirrored the IMF's role but under BRICS control. De-dollarization entered the lexicon around this time. It refers to efforts to diminish the dollar's role in global transactions, reserves, and pricing. For BRICS nations, this was driven by vulnerabilities exposed by U.S. sanctions. Russia, sanctioned after its 2014 annexation of Crimea, began settling oil trades with China in yuan and rubles. China, facing tariffs during the Trump era, promoted the renminbi, its currency, also known as the yuan, through currency swaps with over 40 countries, allowing them to borrow yuan without converting dollars. India experimented with rupee settlements for imports from Russia. These were bilateral steps, but they laid groundwork for broader shifts. The bloc's expansion accelerated in the 2020s. At the 2023 Johannesburg summit, leaders invited Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to join, effective January 1, 2024. Argentina later withdrew due to domestic politics under President Javier Milei, but the others integrated, swelling BRICS to 9 members. This move diversified the group geographically and economically. Oil-rich Middle Eastern powers like Saudi Arabia and the UAE brought energy leverage, while Egypt and Ethiopia added African depth, and Iran provided a bridge to sanctioned economies. The expansion was framed as amplifying the Global South, a term for developing nations in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, historically marginalized in global governance. Indonesia's path to BRICS membership was a gradual one, marked by cautious diplomacy and internal deliberations. As Southeast Asia's largest economy, with a GDP exceeding $1 trillion and a population ranking 4th globally, Indonesia had long been courted. Invitations surfaced as early as 2011, but under Presidents Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono and Joko Widodo, known as Jokowi, Indonesia prioritized non-alignment, balancing ties with the West, China, and regional forums like ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, founded in 1967, to promote economic and security cooperation among 10 member states. The turning point began in 2023. At the Johannesburg summit, Indonesia attended as a guest, with Jokowi expressing interest in closer ties but stopping short of membership. Domestic debates ensued. Proponents argued BRICS offered alternatives to Western finance amid Indonesia's debt burdens from COVID-19 recovery, while critics feared alienating the U.S., a key investor and security partner, through frameworks like the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework launched in 2022. Jokowi's administration, focused on infrastructure like the new capital Nusantara, saw BRICS's new development bank as a funding source. Prabowo Subianto's election in February 2024 shifted dynamics. A former general and Jokowi's defense minister, Prabowo campaigned on economic nationalism, promising to elevate Indonesia's global stature. His inauguration in October 2024 coincided with BRICS's Kazan summit in Russia, where leaders reiterated expansion plans. Prabowo sent Foreign Minister Sujino to Kazan, signaling intent. Behind the scenes, negotiations intensified. BRICS required unanimous approval from existing members. China and Russia, eager for Indonesia's strategic location controlling key maritime routes like the Malacca Strait, advocated strongly. India, wary of China's dominance, sought assurances on balanced decision-making. Brazil and South Africa emphasized Global South solidarity. By November 2024, Indonesia submitted a formal application. Diplomatic shuttles followed. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited Jakarta, promising investments in nickel processing. Indonesia holds the world's largest nickel reserves, vital for electric vehicle batteries. Russian envoys discussed energy deals, while Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi called Prabowo, highlighting shared democratic values. Internal consultations involved Indonesia's central bank, Bank Indonesia, which modeled economic impacts. Joining could boost trade by 15%, per studies from the University of Indonesia. The announcement came on January 7, 2025, during a virtual BRICS ceremony hosted by South Africa, the rotating chair. Prabowo declared, Indonesia joins BRICS not to oppose any nation but to build a more equitable world. Membership terms were standard: equal voting rights, contributions to the new development bank scaled by GDP, and participation in summits. Indonesia became the 10th full member, with partner status for others like Turkey and Malaysia under consideration. Post-joining, integration proceeded step by step. In February, Indonesia hosted a BRICS business forum in Bali, attracting over 500 delegates. Agreements emerged: A memorandum with China for yuan-denominated nickel trades, reducing dollar exposure. In March, Bank Indonesia signed currency swap extensions with BRICS central banks, totaling $50 billion equivalent. By June, at the Rio de Janeiro summit under Brazil's presidency, leaders endorsed Indonesia's proposals for sustainable development funds, leveraging its palm oil and biodiversity expertise. The second half of 2025 saw acceleration. In July, Indonesia launched foreign exchange operations centered on the yuan, allowing banks to settle trades without dollar intermediaries. This tied into BRICS's bridge payment system, piloted in 2024 for local currency cross-border transfers. By September, Indonesia's trade with BRICS surged 20% year-on-year, per customs data. In October, Prabowo addressed the United Nations General Assembly, calling for reforms to the dollar-centric system, echoing BRICS's push for increased special drawing rights allocations from the IMF. A basket currency including the dollar, euro, yen, pound, and yuan. By December, the wave's momentum was evident. Indonesia's central bank reported a 10% increase in non-dollar reserves, shifting toward yuan and rupees. A landmark deal in November saw Indonesian state-owned Pertamina sell oil to India in rupees, bypassing dollars, a first for non-Russian suppliers. Beneath the public narrative of economic cooperation lie hidden or less discussed factors that propelled Indonesia's decision and amplified its role in de-dollarization. One is domestic politics. Prabowo's coalition, including Islamic parties, viewed BRICS as a platform to assert Muslim-majority Indonesia's voice, countering perceptions of Western bias in issues like Palestine. Economic pressures played a role. Indonesia's external debt exceeded $400 billion in 2024, much denominated in dollars. Rising U.S. interest rates under the Federal Reserve's policies increased repayment costs, prompting diversification. Less publicized is China's soft power. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, launched in 2013, Beijing invested over $50 billion in Indonesian infrastructure, from high-speed rails to ports, creating dependencies that eased BRICS entry. Geopolitical hedging is another layer. Indonesia navigates the U.S.-China rivalry carefully. As a Quad observer, the quadrilateral security dialogue with the U.S., Japan, India, and Australia, Indonesia balances security ties with economic pragmatism. Joining BRICS allows access to Russian arms at discounted rates, vital for modernizing its military amid South China Sea tensions. Environmental trade-offs are overlooked. Indonesia's nickel mining, fueled by Chinese demand, has caused deforestation and pollution in Sulawesi, yet BRICS forums downplay these for sustainable rhetoric. Corporate influences add nuance. Conglomerates like Salam Group lobbied for membership, eyeing BRICS markets for palm oil and textiles. Shadowy networks, including oligarchs linked to Prabowo's past, facilitated back-channel talks. Currency risks lurk. The rupiah's volatility, depreciating 10% against the dollar in 2024, makes de-dollarization appealing but challenging, requiring robust hedging tools. The global implications of Indonesia's BRICS accession extend far beyond Southeast Asia, turbocharging de-dollarization and reshaping international relations. Economically, BRICS's enlarged footprint, now rivaling the G7's GDP, amplifies its clout. Indonesia's addition brings control over critical commodities, 40% of global nickel, essential for batteries, and significant shares of palm oil and coal. This enables pricing in local currencies, eroding the petrodollar. For instance, Saudi Arabia's 2025 yuan oil sales to China, extended to Indonesia, divert billions from dollar circuits. De-dollarization manifests in practical ways. The BRICS bridge system, by December 2025, processed over $1 trillion in transactions, per bank estimates, using blockchain for efficiency. Indonesia's yuan operations reduced transaction costs by 2%, benefiting SMEs. Globally, this inspires others. Vietnam and Thailand explore partner status, while African nations like Nigeria increase yuan reserves. For the United States, challenges mount. The dollar's reserve share dipped to 56% in 2025, per IMF data, raising borrowing costs and limiting sanction efficacy. Adversaries like Iran trade oil via BRICS channels, bypassing restrictions. Europe grapples with fragmentation. Reliant on dollars for energy, it faces higher costs if de-dollarization spreads. Security ramifications are profound. A multipolar world diminishes U.S. unilateralism. BRICS's non-intervention stance contrasts NATO's, appealing to neutrals. Yet, risks include volatility. Sudden shifts could trigger crises like the 1997 Asian financial meltdown. Environmental impacts loom. Accelerated mining for de-dollarization tech strains ecosystems. Socially, de-dollarization empowers the global south, potentially lifting billions through inclusive finance. But inequalities persist. Within BRICS, China's dominance, contributing 60% of GDP, raises hegemony concerns. As we reflect on this transformative year, from the vantage of December 2025, Indonesia's integration into BRICS emerges as a catalyst in an unstoppable de-dollarization wave, not through revolution but evolution. What began as bilateral swaps has swelled into systemic change, challenging a dollar order born in 1944. Indonesia, with its strategic archipelago bridging Asia and Oceania, embodies this shift, balancing tradition with ambition, non-alignment with assertion. Yet unstoppable does not mean inevitable. Hurdles remain: technical harmonization for payment systems, political divergences within BRICS, and dollar resilience through U.S. innovation. True success demands equity, ensuring smaller members like Ethiopia benefit equally, addressing corruption in deals, and mitigating environmental costs. In the end, this wave signifies humanity's quest for fairness in a world long skewed. As currencies diversify and alliances realign, the lesson is clear. Power once concentrated now disperses. Indonesia's step into BRICS may herald a multipolar dawn, where no single nation dictates terms, but all share in shaping tomorrow. The dollar's era endures but transformed. The wave rolls on, carrying us toward uncertain shores. As the year 2025 draws to its close on this Christmas Day, the integration of Indonesia into the BRICS alliance has proceeded with steady momentum, marking a significant yet measured step in the broader pursuit of financial and economic diversification among emerging powers. President Prabowo Subianto's announcement of full membership on January 7, confirmed through diplomatic channels and formalized in subsequent multilateral engagements, positioned Indonesia as the 10th core member of the expanded grouping. Throughout the year, participation in BRICS mechanisms, ranging from finance ministers' meetings to technical working groups on trade facilitation, has enabled Indonesia to contribute to ongoing discussions on local currency settlements, infrastructure financing through the new development bank, and coordinated approaches to sustainable development challenges. Developments in the latter months reflected pragmatic consolidation rather than dramatic acceleration. At the Rio de Janeiro summit in July, hosted under Brazil's presidency, Indonesia's delegation advanced proposals aligned with national priorities, including enhanced cooperation on critical minerals processing and renewable energy transitions. Bilateral agreements progressed incrementally. Extensions of currency swap arrangements with select BRICS central banks provided additional liquidity options, while exploratory dialogues on commodity trade invoicing in non-dollar denominations continued without binding commitments to wholesale shifts. Indonesia's central bank, Bank Indonesia, maintained a diversified reserve portfolio, with modest adjustments toward holdings in partner currencies reflecting broader global trends rather than abrupt reallocation. Less discussed elements continued to inform this gradual trajectory. Domestic economic stabilization efforts focused on managing inflation, supporting rupiah stability, and advancing infrastructure projects such as the Nusantara capital relocation, shaped the pace of external engagements, ensuring alignment with internal capacity constraints. Regional considerations within ASEAN frameworks emphasized complementarity, with Indonesia advocating approaches that preserve Southeast Asian cohesion amid wider multilateral commitments. Coordination on environmental and governance standards for resource extraction balanced strategic resource advantages with responsible stewardship objectives articulated in national policy frameworks. Globally, Indonesia's involvement contributed to an environment of evolving multilateralism, where expanded forums facilitate dialogue on equitable representation in international financial architecture. Trade flows among BRICS participants and partners exhibited steady growth, consistent with pre-existing patterns, supported by established bilateral channels and incremental improvements in payment interoperability. Reserve currency compositions worldwide displayed continued diversification at measured rates, with the dollar retaining predominant status amid deep market liquidity and institutional preferences. In assessing the culmination of 2025, Indonesia's accession to BRICS exemplifies a deliberate enhancement of diplomatic and economic options, integrated through consensus-driven processes that reinforce sovereignty while fostering cooperative mechanisms. Membership has augmented avenues for infrastructure financing, technical exchange, and policy coordination without necessitating fundamental departures from established monetary practices. Complementary initiatives in alternative settlement systems and development banking remain in structured developmental phases, offering practical tools for participants as capacities mature. The broader implications warrant careful evaluation. Expanded coalitions promote inclusive governance, amplifying voices from diverse regions in addressing transnational challenges such as climate resilience and digital transformation. Efforts to enhance local currency usage and reserve diversification contribute to systemic resilience, mitigating vulnerabilities associated with concentration while preserving efficiency through interconnected markets. Sustained commitment to transparent standards and mutual consultation remains essential to realize benefits equitably across participants. Ultimately, the events of 2025 affirm that shifts in global economic architecture unfold through patient, coordinated engagement rather than unilateral disruption. Indonesia's role within BRICS underscores a balanced approach to multilateralism, leveraging expanded partnerships to advance national development objectives within a framework of regional and global stability. As financial practices evolve incrementally, the emphasis lies in arrangements that accommodate plurality while upholding interoperability and trust. The path forward calls for ongoing dialogue and adaptive stewardship, ensuring that cooperative structures support shared prosperity and equilibrium in an increasingly interconnected world. As the year 2025 concludes on this Christmas Day, Indonesia's integration into the BRICS framework has continued to unfold with thoughtful deliberation, establishing a platform for enhanced multilateral engagement while aligning with the nation's long-standing principles of independent and active foreign policy. Formalized through President Prabowo Subianto's announcement in January and subsequent participation in key gatherings, membership has opened structured channels for cooperation on economic resilience, infrastructure development, and coordinated responses to global challenges. Throughout the year, Indonesian representatives contributed constructively to discussions within finance and trade tracks, advocating positions that reflect domestic priorities such as food security, energy transition, and equitable access to development financing through institutions like the New Development Bank. The final months witnessed sustained, incremental progress consistent with established timelines. Engagement at technical levels focused on knowledge exchange regarding best practices in digital economy governance, critical minerals supply chains, and climate adaptation strategies. Bilateral follow-up agreements with individual BRICS partners advanced specific projects, including joint ventures in renewable energy and agricultural technology transfer, while broader initiatives on alternative payment mechanisms remained in exploratory and pilot phases, emphasizing interoperability and risk management. Bank Indonesia maintained prudent reserve management, incorporating diversified holdings in line with global trends toward balanced portfolios, without abrupt shifts that could introduce volatility into domestic markets. Underlying dynamics continued to shape this measured approach. National development imperatives, centered on completing flagship initiatives like the Nusantara Capital and strengthening economic buffers against external shocks, informed the calibration of external commitments, ensuring complementarity with ASEAN-centered regional architecture. Diplomatic balancing preserved productive relations across major powers, allowing Indonesia to leverage expanded options without compromising strategic autonomy. Governance considerations for resource-rich sectors integrated sustainability objectives, aligning international cooperation with domestic regulatory enhancements. In the wider international sphere, Indonesia's role within BRICS has enriched dialogues on reforming global economic governance, contributing Southeast Asian perspectives to debates on inclusive multilateralism and sustainable growth pathways. Trade and investment flows among participants displayed steady expansion driven by complementary strengths, supported by existing frameworks rather than novel systemic overhauls. Reserve currency dynamics globally exhibited gradual diversification, with established instruments retaining core functions amid evolving preferences for resilience and efficiency. Upon reflection at the close of 2025, Indonesia's participation in BRICS represents a strategic augmentation of diplomatic and economic instruments, pursued through consensus-oriented processes that enhance agency while upholding principles of non-alignment and mutual respect. Membership facilitates access to alternative financing sources and technical collaboration, complementing rather than replacing engagements with traditional partners. Ongoing work in areas such as development banking and trade facilitation provides practical tools for addressing shared challenges as capacities and consensus evolve. The larger consequences merit nuanced consideration. Broadened coalitions foster greater representation of diverse viewpoints in international decision-making, potentially leading to more balanced outcomes on issues from debt relief to technology transfer. Initiatives promoting financial resilience and local currency usage contribute to systemic stability by distributing risks more evenly, while preserving the efficiencies derived from interconnected markets. Commitment to transparent mechanisms and inclusive consultation remains crucial to ensure that expanded cooperation delivers tangible benefits across varying levels of development. In summation, the trajectory observed in 2025 illustrates that meaningful evolution in global partnerships emerges from patient, principle-guided engagement rather than rapid reconfiguration. Indonesia's contributions within BRICS highlight a calibrated approach to multilateralism, harnessing collective platforms to advance national aspirations within a context of regional harmony and global equilibrium. As economic and diplomatic practices adapt incrementally, the focus resides in structures that accommodate diversity while maintaining coherence and trust. The horizon ahead emphasizes continued dialogue and responsible stewardship, ensuring that cooperative endeavors support equitable progress and stability in an interconnected international landscape. As the year 2025 reaches its conclusion on this Christmas Day, Indonesia's participation in the BRICS alliance has continued to develop with characteristic prudence and purpose, reinforcing a multifaceted foreign policy that expands cooperative horizons while safeguarding core national interests. Since the formalization of membership early in the year, Indonesian representatives have engaged consistently across the bloc's established tracks, contributing insights drawn from the country's unique geographic, demographic, and economic profile to deliberations on trade enhancement, climate resilience, and equitable financial mechanisms. Participation has facilitated deeper exchanges on issues of mutual relevance, such as sustainable management of critical minerals, food security frameworks, and digital infrastructure development, all pursued within the spirit of consensus that defines BRICS decision-making. The closing quarter of the year has been characterized by methodical follow-through on commitments made at earlier summits. Technical committees advanced discussions on harmonizing standards for cross-border investment facilitation, with Indonesia emphasizing approaches that complement ASEAN integration efforts and preserve regional autonomy. Bilateral engagements with individual members yielded targeted outcomes, including memoranda on technology transfer in agriculture and renewable energy, alongside exploratory studies on expanding local currency usage in select trade corridors. These initiatives remained aligned with domestic fiscal and monetary priorities, ensuring that external cooperation supports rather than strains ongoing efforts to bolster economic stability and infrastructure advancement. Deeper considerations have continued to guide this balanced trajectory. Indonesia's longstanding doctrine of a free and active foreign policy, rooted in non-alignment and pragmatic engagement, has informed the calibration of BRICS involvement, allowing the nation to draw benefits from diversified partnerships without foreclosing productive relations with other major economies. Internal coordination across government ministries and stakeholders has prioritized outcomes that directly advance national development goals, such as enhancing value-added processing of natural resources and strengthening resilience against global commodity volatility. Regional dynamics within Southeast Asia have been carefully factored, with Indonesia advocating positions that reinforce ASEAN's centrality and foster synergies between overlapping multilateral frameworks. In the broader global context, Indonesia's contributions to BRICS have enriched ongoing conversations about reforming international economic governance, bringing a distinctive voice from the world's largest archipelagic state and a key representative of Muslim-majority nations. Trade and investment linkages among participants have grown steadily, driven by complementary economic structures and supported by incremental improvements in facilitation mechanisms. Reserve management practices worldwide have exhibited continued prudent diversification, reflecting shared preferences for resilience amid evolving macroeconomic conditions, while established currencies maintain their foundational roles through entrenched institutional advantages. Upon reflection at the end of 2025, Indonesia's engagement with BRICS stands as a thoughtful extension of diplomatic and economic strategy, realized through inclusive, step-by-step integration that amplifies agency on the global stage. Membership has provided additional avenues for development financing, policy coordination, and technical collaboration, complementing existing partnerships and enriching the nation's toolkit for addressing complex challenges. Ongoing efforts in areas such as sustainable infrastructure and inclusive growth underscore a commitment to outcomes that deliver tangible progress for citizens while contributing to collective stability. The wider ramifications invite deliberate contemplation. Expanded multilateral platforms promote greater inclusivity in international discourse, enabling a broader spectrum of perspectives to inform solutions on pressing issues from debt sustainability to technological equity. Initiatives fostering financial and trade resilience enhance systemic capacity to absorb shocks, distributing risks more evenly while preserving the efficiencies of interconnected markets. Dedication to transparent processes and mutual accommodation remains indispensable to ensure that cooperation translates into equitable advancement across diverse contexts. In essence, the developments of 2025 affirm that substantive progress in global partnerships arises from principled, adaptive engagement rather than abrupt realignment. Indonesia's role within BRICS exemplifies a calibrated multilateralism that harnesses collective strength to pursue national aspirations within a framework of harmony and shared responsibility. As diplomatic and economic practices evolve through patient collaboration, the emphasis resides in architectures that embrace plurality while sustaining coherence and confidence. The future calls for sustained commitment to dialogue and equilibrium, ensuring that cooperative structures continue to foster prosperity, stability, and mutual respect in an ever more interconnected world.